some thoughts and discussion on the movie Ammonite starring Kate Winslet. I've just been talking about Anatomy of a Scandal and The Reader, so I wonder if I'll actually release those videos in that order, because it will be confusing if I don't if I release this first. But yeah, again, just to recap, just to kind of talking about movies and things, series that I've watched that have kind of piqued an interest, and just doing this as some sort of kind of informal discussion and outlet about talking about those movies and series. I did write notes for Anatomy of a Scandal and I enjoyed that process, but with the movies The Reader and Ammonite, I didn't have that kind of intention or idea. It was only recently when I watched Anatomy of a Scandal I thought about the idea of just writing notes and actively watching. So I'm not sure how many of these videos I'm going to do, because it feels a bit awkward and difficult for me to do, especially with my I'm trying not to add any more stress and pressure to my mental health. So this is a lot different to me just doing a video log about my day, which is, it's hard to do, but it's easy in some ways because I'm just sort of in mostly an unfiltered way just talking about my state of being and emotions, where this is, I want it to be in that same way as well. So it's not like a professional entertaining review, really. It's just me talking about what I want about this movie or series, and so without the pressure of making it interesting and just doing it more for me, really. As I said before, it feels like a bit of a doing it for me, and if it helps or entertains anyone else or any of that stuff, then that's a kind of bonus. So the movie Ammonite, I think this was on my Netflix list for a while, and I think what put me off of it is because it was like a period piece sort of movie, and I don't usually watch movies that are not as contemporary, so I'm not sure if that's just because there's just that feeling that they'll just be boring and it will just be too slow, and cause some of them can be like a sort of artsy or piece. So I thought what interested me was just the element of Kate and Charlotte's relationship, especially in that time where, of course, it was something that I don't know the laws or if it what was allowed, but of course there'll be lots of explanations and it being frowned upon, and the understanding of sexuality in that time, and of course Charlotte being married as well. So I was just interested in that whole dynamic. Overall, I really enjoyed it, and it was actually refreshing watching something that was, in a simpler time. And I was just thinking now, anything before like the year 2000, we'll say before like mobile phones and computers became more and more popular, like it just felt sometimes like those anything set in that time, I can appreciate them more. There's a simplicity about them, about that life, and so I kind of enjoyed that aspect of it. So we've got Mary, a paleontologist, living near the coast, near a beach, and I quite like that setting for kind of going to the beach and sort of collecting rocks and things where she could find fossils and excavate them, and that was kind of her life. And you could sense kind of a loneliness in Mary living with her mother, and there was definitely a hardness to her, almost like the seas sort of like, it's battering the coast. It's kind of her personality moulded with that. It felt like, where she is quite vulnerable but also really hardened as well. I think the hardened makes her vulnerable. So when anything soft comes along or gentle, like Charlotte's energy was like that. It was kind of a reaction to her. So initially it becomes a bit of a chore to kind of have Charlotte with her and try and teach her some things while Charlotte's husband is away doing his thing. I can't try to think of the specifics. So it says visited by Roderick Murchison, yeah. Just scanning the summary. Yeah, and it's kind of his understanding of her having some sort of melancholy. It's probably as detailed as they could probably get in those days of people, dealing with their sort of mental health or emotions. But to kind of enjoy the original coldness of Mary and Charlotte and how it warms and how they kind of, and there's a moment where Charlotte sees this big kind of boulder and sort of says, hey, there could be a fossil in there, and I think she eventually, Kate just refuses to go with her. Then when she sees her sort of get down and try and dig out that rock, they kind of come together and do it together. Then they bring it out onto some wood and carry it back. It just felt like it's a real moment of them connecting, and for Charlotte to understand Mary's world, I felt like that really meant something, and that kind of was almost a catalyst to their sort of relationship taking form. I'm just scanning this movie summary. I watched it probably a week or two ago, and I was meaning to do this a lot sooner. I feel like maybe in something else I watch, if I'm able to write notes and record it soon after where it's fresh, that would be useful. My memory is just really not good at the moment. One scene I want to talk about just is it's when the performance is happening in town. I think the Doctor is performing like a musical performance, and they go there, and I could really relate to Kate in just feeling the outsider, socially awkward or not wanting to engage and not connected to other people. I kind of related to that as well, and Charlotte kind of effortlessly made conversation. She was off, and I could sense Kate perhaps feeling a bit jealous and upset, and just like I just really related to her just leaving, going home, and then when Charlotte come back, I initially thought there might be like an argument between them, and there was initial intensity there, but then kind of Charlotte did just completely reminded her that I think she told Mary, why did you leave me there? And it's almost like it kind of reminded Mary that Charlotte, even though it seemed like she was like fine without her, but she really wasn't, and looks and perception can play a big part of that as well, because you can literally just have a reaction of, she doesn't need me here and I'm just here by myself. What am I doing here with these people I don't even really know? And it was kind of immediately Charlotte found the right words and to sort of calm Mary, and they reconnected again. Maybe just talk about the last scene as well. Of course, there's the sadness when Charlotte gets kind of recalled by her husband. She gets kind of picked up, and they can't really have a proper goodbye in that sense outside the horse carriage. But then she receives the letter, and it's like you almost see Mary come back to life, going on that kind of I'd say a ferry, but in those days it was more of a sort of transport, sort of cargo ship that she kind of got onto. And then there was a huge shock where Charlotte like had a room ready for her, and was like, and I really agreed with Mary when she goes, you're just fitting me into Charlotte's life. But I could also sense that Charlotte really did have good intentions. She wanted to spend time with Mary, have her close. So I could understand each of their perspectives of that as well. And then there was the end scene. Like I really hoped, so when Mary went in to see her original like big fossil that she excavated, and it's in a display in the museum, I was like, originally the shot just pans out from the display cabinet to Mary, I think, and then you see Charlotte come on the other side of it, and I was just like hoping she would show up. And of course it leaves the ending ambiguous, so which is, it's nice in some ways, but in other ways I wish, like, obviously you want like a resolution as well. Like, did they resolve it, they reconnect and figure out a solution, or was that a goodbye? Part of me is always sort of optimistic in that they figured things out. Like I had all these different ideas, like, I wonder if just Charlotte just left her husband and came to live with Mary there, or took some like money and riches with her, and they built a life together somewhere. But I don't know, I had a sense that it wasn't the end for them in whatever capacity, whether Charlotte went to visit Mary or Mary came to visit Charlotte. There was some kind of, I felt like their connection would have stayed in some way. I don't think it would have just been a final goodbye, and maybe they would have had an understanding, and Mary would be able to, which she did, communicate to Charlotte, so you can't just fit me into your life like one of your fossils she had in a display cabinet. So that was interesting, and I think for her to meet her there at the museum, or wait for her potentially, because she probably didn't know when she was showing up, I felt like there was more meaning to that than just a goodbye. So I felt like, that connection was too strong for that just to kind of end in that moment, in that scene. But just my thoughts on Ammonite.